morning. Today, we've been doing the wrap up for 5-6 years, I want to say. We have a kickoff, we have a wrap up, and we have a couple presentations that we can do at the county board. It's always exciting when you hear successes, some of the challenges that are facing, this program. But most important today, I wanted to, if you haven't heard, Nicole Erickson has been with us 3.5 years, has chosen to go to greener pastures, so this will be her last wrap-up meeting. And she really has become the face of our AIS program here in Crow Wing County. So we'll see. Hopefully we can fill her shoes. But they're big, but she's done a really nice job for us. I just wanted to announce that if you hadn't heard. So I usually say be respectful and nice to staff. Today you can give her all the grief you want. Okay? With that, I'll let them take off. But thanks everybody for attending. What you got?
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you for being here today. If some of you don't know me, my name is Nicole Erickson. I'm the Environmental Services Coordinator for Crow Wing County. And just to let everybody know, we are recording this meeting. We're going to be sharing this recording with other members that we reach out and do our bi-weekly updates during the summertime. And so people that aren't able to attend today, we are having a recording. But unfortunately, yeah, this is my last wrap-up presentation. So thanks for that introduction, Gary, and we'll get started. So kind of just laying out what today is going to bring is, we're going to talk about our challenges, we're going to talk about our accomplishments, we're going to go through some inspector training, and we're going to talk about, the data that we have been seeing across, a good span of the years that I've been here with the county. And then we're going to talk about our new Star Research program. I'm really excited about sharing that information with you, and then our AIS prevention efforts this year, and also talking about some Eurasian water milfoil treatment grants. And we do have the Minnesota DNR with us today to give an update on their inspection season and what they kind of seen throughout Crow Wing County as well. And then obviously we'll have our feedback session, so we'll have some questions for lake associations to really, talk to us and get your guys' feedback, because it's so important for, our future planning for this plan. And then we'll just talk about next steps going forward. So we allocated a little more than 15,000 hours this year. We had a standardized, consistent shift from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. through our decontaminations and through all of our accesses this year. We provided in-person training for the first time in a long time this year with our inspectors, which was really great to have them all be in the room. We also gave our experienced inspectors $16 an hour this year, and our new ones $15 an hour. We did have a new texting service this year that was kind of really interesting. We got to update our inspectors on new infested water bodies, or if there were some bad weather conditions, or just, hey, check your email for the next AIS update. So we had multiple updates throughout the season with our inspectors. And then we did fulfill almost 3,000 hours of expanded coverage this year. So that is quite the accomplishment with the season that we had. Some significant changes to our AIS prevention is that we started a new Star Research program. We had our AIS lead inspector sample all of our core county accesses, so that covered 44. And then we also did a faucet snail education campaign. So newly introduced down in Lower South Long Lake, we had faucet snails, and so we really kind of educated our inspectors and the public so they're aware, so we don't have more infestations of that species. And then we also increased our signage and really passed out, we have decon hotline cards that I'll kind of share more in depth of, the education efforts that we did. And we also passed out multiple materials this year, which was really great for the public. So this is our lead inspector, Emma, performing a decon. She did about 256 inspector checks this summer. And then she also did 126 searches at the public landings. She also assisted in 8 fishing tournaments and completed 40 decontaminations. So other than her lead responsibilities, she was also on our decons and also performed level ones once in a while. She completed 30 at our Cross Lake decon. She really got to know the decon. And then she also completed 10 on our mobile. Yes, Gary.
Can you just elaborate a little bit? What, a lead inspector, what are those lead duties kind of that they do different than the rest of the gang, I guess, you know, the rest of the inspectors?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So basically she assisted me with the program. Basically a level 1 and a level 2 inspector would be at the access all day. They would clock in at the access, they would stay at the access performing the level 1s or the level 2s. So Emma did a little above and beyond. She assisted with, you know, my scheduling that I do with inspectors. She did spot checks, she did extra sampling, she did decontaminations, she trained a lot of inspectors. She really did benefit the program and assisted me this season.
What is a public landing search? What we should be doing there?
So we had these rakes, if you've heard of Starry Trek, this is kind of where that thought process came from, is that we had these rakes, and so she would go to these public landings and throw the rakes to identify different species to make sure, you know, we weren't missing anything to kind of give more of an AIS protection effort this year. So obviously we had challenges. During our peak season, during 4th of July, we had 32 inspectors. We were only 55% staffed the whole entire season. And you know, inspectors, when they come in to the job early in the spring, we give them an availability form, and they get to, you know, select the days that they want off, and obviously things come up in the season. But in total, we had over 2,000 hours that were for time off requests. So we have to, you know, that is a big significance to our program. Also, we couldn't fulfill county or expanded allocated hours. And so we did have end of season kind of equipment drop off with inspectors where they came in and they talked about them this season, you know, how they were, and gave us our feedback. And so their concerns this year was the rising gas costs, as we had to schedule them closer to home this year versus other years because of the gas. They always want that pay increase. And then also they had concerns about like service providers not following rules. There has been some concerns about that. Bathroom at landings. Most of the landings are covered, but there's about 10 of them that we don't have a public restroom at. And then just kind of more simpler, better AIS education handouts for the public is what their feedback considered. So just kind of going backwards, this is kind of our planning phase from the beginning of the year where the state awards us the allocated money, and then our planning efforts were to put that allocation into our watercraft inspections. And this also includes the hiring costs, salaries for inspectors, training and supplies, and a portion of my salary as well. And then we also we run the model, the AIS Explorer model that Mazer, the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Research Center, we were the pilot program, we ran that model. And so we predicted 80% coverage for the beginning of the season. And so we identified those lakes, and we looked also at our county average inspections per hour through 19 to 21. And so this is kind of the same planning efforts that we'll be doing for the upcoming year.
Well, if this budget or this allocation is based on 80% coverage and we only had 55%, was there a significant surplus in the budget then? Because was the 424 based on 80% coverage?
I can expand on that. I don't have the exact numbers yet, but yes, there is a larger rollover than we have seen.
So we don't have that carry forward for 2023?
Yep, we carry it forward.
But you don't have the number for that, but there is a large rollover.
It is, yep, it is larger
Okay.
than prior years. Yep.
And that's something that we do highlight in our kickoff meeting, when we kind of do our planning process, and we have another meeting with the county board in January, and so those numbers will be presented to the lake associations as well. And then we had a decrease with our allocation this year compared to 2021 because we had shifts. We started fishing opener weekend and we ended Labor Day weekend, and we had that consistent hour shifts. And so then we look at it like, okay, well, how are we gonna risk our landings? We have a high risk to a very low risk, and this was the coverage depending on what those average inspection per hour and the traffic that we were seeing at these accesses determining their risk. And so here is the main map that we tried to follow this season. And so you can see we have, a lot of high-risk accesses. People come here to, tourists, to a vacation. We have a lot of recreation out in Crow Wing County. And so we have, this is the map of all 44 accesses that we had included in our plan for this year. So kind of diving into training, we hosted in-person training for the first time since 2019. And so that's when I kind of came on board, and it was my first time meeting all the inspectors. And so this was actually my first time actually doing the in-person training on my own. So it was really great to have, we had 32 inspectors in the room asking questions. We did create some online quizzes for them, and I had individual sections, about 5 of them, to go through protocols and procedures and AIS identification, and just talking about some policy and procedures, county-based too. And so we had a 65 inspector return rate, and we had very few new inspectors apply in 2022. So there's our Inspector Ray. He's been with us for a very long time. He's a great inspector for us. And so we had our inspectors started out fishing opener weekend as scheduled. And we only had 9 violations reported from inspectors this season. So looking at this is based on average boats per hour. This average is figured from Friday through Sunday coverage only. So this doesn't have the Monday through Thursday expanded coverage. So we see that, Breezy Point Resort is definitely up there compared. So this is the top 20 highest inspections per hour. And as you can kind of see our trend over on the right-hand side from 2019 going to 2022, we do see a spike in 2020 when we hit COVID and kind of decreasing from there. The decreased inspections are probably due to our decrease in hiring. So just something to put into perspective.
Nicole, can I ask you one more question? Sorry, I don't want to get you up, but you've referenced it 4 or 5 times. You and I have talked about it on the phone. Decreased in hiring, no new inspectors. Is it, I don't want to get you off subject, but is there, I'll use a term, how do we market for, we're all the same, how do we market for new inspectors? If that's something that's coming later, that'd be fine, but you've referenced the shortage and lack of applicants a number of times.
Well, that's definitely something that we want to consider for future years, and definitely we can talk about maybe if you guys have ideas for us to market better in the future, but we do have a feedback section later on in the presentation that we definitely can go more in the weeds.
How do you do it now? I mean, how is there?
Do you want to?
Sure, I can expand on that. Just so they can hear me on the recording. So what we do now is we advertise in the paper, we post on Facebook, on the county page, and a few job sites on Facebook. We go to a couple local job fairs. We send it out to 5 or 6 local high schools in the area because we can hire 17 and older. We, like I said, we go to the colleges.
Excellent. So quite a bit.
Yeah,
You're
we do.
working hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're always looking for more,
Okay.
more opportunities for sure.
Thank you.
And just real quick, the feedback, it's money. $15 an hour now is really challenging to pull somebody when they can get 16, 17 at McDonald's.
Yeah.
So it's one of the factors that is real that is getting that, something we need to really take a hard look at.
And I have a math grade, so I start looking at surpluses and not enough people.
Yep.
And Nicole and I touched on it for 30 seconds, but is there a way to pay more money? If that's the tipping point, is there a way to increase the pay? So
And there is, yeah. I think the last 2 years, we've increased the pay $1 per hour the last 2 years. We hadn't increased it before. We're thinking, hey, we're doing pretty good. We don't think, when we hear some of the feedback, when we've lost some of our inspectors, say, well, I'm gonna make $2 an hour more for the summer doing X, Y, or Z, that maybe we haven't kept up with what has happened over the last couple of years in this job market. And, for these kind of seasonal type workers, it's really got competitive more so than what we maybe anticipated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And if there's any questions online, if you want to just press the raise your hand, we have Jessica here looking at those too. So if you online have any questions, just let us know. So kind of diving into the data here, so Crow Wing County performed a little over 38,000 inspections this year, and we accomplished a little over 14,000 hours. Taking it from our core county hours, we accomplished 30,000 inspections, and we accomplished a little over 11,000 hours. So we did not meet our allocated hours. But for expanded coverage, we accomplished almost 9,000 hours, and we did almost get 9,000 inspections and almost 3,000 hours. And so you can kind of see that we didn't really meet our allocated hours, but we were trying to meet expanded coverage request hours too.
I don't see it on there, Nicole. Was there a total number of expanded coverage hours requested? So like if we did, roughly 9,000, did the lake associations, did they ask for 15,000? I was just wondering how much did we meet their expectations? Okay.
So we'll keep moving on until she gets that number for us. So our drain flood compliance is pretty, same with the state. It was pretty similar to last year's. That 4%. We're hoping for that too, like the state is, but
All inspections. Okay, gotcha.
Those expanded coverage hours, we had a total request of just over 6,500 hours requested for expanded coverage in 2022.
35-40% of what we were able to get to on that. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Just looking at some of the entering inspections, we had just over 18,000 entering inspections. We found less species this year compared to 2022. And so when a boat comes into an access and they either have weeds or zebra mussels, that's a great education opportunity for our inspectors to, hey, you're not supposed to travel with weeds. You need to remove the weeds off your boat before you enter. And same with zebra mussels. If they are removable by hand, then they're free to launch. If they aren't removable by hand and need a decon, then that education with that inspector and the public, they go through that decontamination process. And so we have really great numbers on seeing that education out in the field. And then for our exiting inspections, we had less than 1% zebra mussels were found during exiting. So we had a little over 20,000 exiting inspections. And obviously when people are exiting the water, we see plants and water, and that's another point of our education when we have these inspectors out on the access with us. And so these are some great numbers compared to last year. So we did see a decrease, and people are very well educated out there. And I have some other numbers too that we'll talk about later. So kind of jumping into our decontamination data, we allocated just under $20,000. We have our permanent decontamination station in Cross Lake, just right behind our Highway Facility Center. We did have that in operation Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend. We did accomplish 558 decontamination hours, and we performed 138 decons, which is a pretty good number for our Cross Lake. That is being used very well. I know that when I do training with inspectors, that I actually hand out these maps to them physically, and if they run into situations where maybe somebody just wants to get a decon just because they want to do a good deed, or if they have that education where, hey, you got a zebra mussel attached, at least we can provide them with the right map to get them to the right location. And this is our mobile decontamination unit. We operated that through the same time as our Cross Lake decon, and we accomplished 405 decontamination hours and performed 28 decontaminations. So we did see a decrease from last year with our mobile decon. And so just kind of going through the approved DNR landings that we can have our decon. Edward had the most decons this season, and then we were able to provide it at a tournament on Rice Lake. We are limited to locations due to we don't have a reclaim mat to recycle that water, so that's potentially something that we can look into for future years. But new this year, we heard a lot from the lake associations that it would be great to have, planned out mobile decon schedule. So I planned out this schedule and I shared it with lake associations. This was provided to all of our inspectors as well. And so we were out of service for one weekend during the season, but we really did some education efforts on, giving the lake associations that schedule, handing it to inspectors. So not quite sure why we're seeing that a decrease in number with mobile decontamination, but hopefully we can just keep bettering our program. And so these are the fishing tournaments. We had a total, we worked around 8 different fishing tournaments. So we had a good handful on the whitefish chain. We had a couple on pelican, and so we're able to provide our decon at some of these locations. So on the whitefish chain on July 8th through the 10th, we inspected 128 boats and we completed 13 decons. That's really good data right there. And so Pelican on July 15th through the 17th, we inspected 380 boats and completed 4 decons, and so on and so forth. Some of these fishing tournaments are very hard to nail down because they don't all have to be registered with the DNR. There's a main schedule that is public view that the DNR has fishing tournaments, and maybe they could touch a little bit on this in their presentation. But some of the smaller tournaments, they don't have to register. So sometimes I get a call from an inspector saying, hey, there's a tournament today. And so we just do our best to, educate them, and we try to provide our lead inspector to those accesses if need be, if it's a big tournament. So that is our statistics for fishing tournaments. And so then we also updated our decon map this year with we had a great GIS specialist help, so this is kind of an upgrade. But for the Minnesota DNR in Crow Wing County, they performed 116 decontaminations. In Outing, just by Roosevelt, north of Emily, they completed 8 decontaminations, and Ruth Lake completed 146, and Gull Lake completed 9. I did hear from Gull Lake that they were having some issues with their decontamination this last season, so that's probably why there's a little bit less numbers. But overall, seeing the Minnesota DNR and Ruth Lake, there's some really good decon numbers out there. So talking about our education efforts, we had our new Star Research program. We also had our social media awareness with Minnesota Traditions. We installed 4 more decontamination signs, which is on the right here, at those kind of lower risk accesses. So that include Nisswa, Gladstone, and Upper and Lower Mission. And we also provided 500 coloring books to kids during the season, mostly during the 4th of July. I participated in Nisswa Nature Camp. There was 5 kids who learned about AIS there. And then we also highlighted AIS at the Crow Wing County Fair. And then we did pass out a survey in August where I have some results to share. So this year we have our decon hotline, which is a automated number that you call and you get a list of the locations. But this year we also had a texting service that if you actually text a keyword, it gives you that location and where those locations are. And so we had 77 incoming phone calls and 110 incoming text messages to those services. So we are seeing a pretty good number right there, having people be interested in our decontamination locations. So diving into Star Research, new this year, we had funds that were granted to lake associations who participated in our new Star Research program. So we had 11 lake associations participate in this event, and they received an incentive by sampling their public access on their lake. And so we had Bass, Crooked, Gull Nisswa, Hubert, Kimball, Lower South Lawn, Upper South Lawn, Pelican, Rabbit and Clinker, Upper Hay, and Serpent, West and East. So we had a really great turnout with lake associations. And these lake associations received hands-on training about starry stormwater identification, which was really eye-opening. And we talked about sampling protocols and procedures as well. And so basically, just to kind of briefly go over the timeline, I did a presentation on the program with lake associations in early May, and then required participation by early June from those lake associations. And then I had Tim Plude with the Minnesota DNR help me with the AIS identification training. And then sampling started in July, August, and September. Those reports were reported to me, and we did a data survey, so I'll dive into those reports and surveys later in the presentation. So here is our AIS ID training. We had it over actually in the Sheriff's Department, but we had a good group of people. Tim Plude came with a whole bunch of different samples. I kind of had a brief, history about, where did starry stormwater come from? Why is it such a nuisance? Just kind of some highlighted information about the species in general, and then we kind of dived into some identification, which was really great. If you're kind of like me, I get kind of nerdy about that kind of stuff, so it was really awesome to have Tim Plude assist with that training. And so lake associations got to touch and feel starry stormwater. They got to learn about the 4 tests and how to check if it's starry stormwater. There's a squeeze test. So if you kind of hear a popping sound, it kind of pops more than other invasive species or our native species would. And kind of tell if it's rough or smooth. Starry stormwater will always be very smooth. And when you do kind of squeeze it out, that chloroform liquid just squeezes right out. It is different. A lot of our native species have a very symmetrical balance to them, where starry stormwater is very forklit, it's kind of raggedy, it's just kind of all over the place, very uneven. And so then also the key identification too is those tiny star-like structures that You can't really see them, but there is a lot of them, and they act as roots. So once one of those bulbils gets into the sediment, that's what grows the plant. And so it's just really interesting. You can kind of see in this lower left-hand picture, this is the starry stonewort, and then these are some of the native species. And so that's the trick to all this invasive species stuff, is that there's a lot of native lookalikes. So, lake associations reported no AIS infested lakes in 2022, so these efforts were very good. They enjoyed being a part of this, and we got great responses. They learned a lot from, they thought this was presented well, they learned something new, and so they had some feedback for the next future years. So hopefully we can continue this great program and get more lake associations involved, and maybe it'll spark your interest next year. Also, we supported our social media awareness with Minnesota Traditions. We committed $8,600 to partner with Minnesota Traditions. They highlighted our Star Research program this year. They did an article on us. And then we also recorded more video content this kind of late summer, kind of highlighting Star Stonewort for the public, and you can see I'm right there. But yeah, so they have been doing some great efforts in getting their social media campaign. So here's the 5 children at NISWA. We got to talk about AIS and look at all these species. They just love to ask all these questions. They're more concerned about how I have this invasive species in front of them and why they're not in the water. But they're just great to work with. I also created an AIS game for kids. We highlighted AIS protection, and we also sent bi-weekly emails to lake associations with continuous updates on reports. I also participated and provided Pelican Lake Association with a couple newsletters during the season, and I have been attending Stop Starry Stonewort program throughout the year with other neighboring counties to, you know, really understand the spread of Starry Stonewort. And then we also, Crow Wing County, we also developed a shoreline property development guide with the Crow Wing SWCD. It really turned out great, and so we have been doing riparian follow-ups and getting those brochures out to the public to show them, hey, you have a protected zone here with the riparian, and you got to do a little extra when you're on the lake so you can protect the lake. So this is all of our AIS education handouts that we had this year. We passed out Protect Your Wake. We ordered 2,000 brochures, and we passed them out to a lot of people. We emphasized training with inspectors on ballast boats and really pass these out to people that maybe don't know how to clean, drain, and dry their boats, because people are, coming, newer generations are buying these, newer expensive boats. We did pass out 500 sponges that we coordinated with G-Cola on. And then we also had our towels, Protect Our Waters towels that we passed out during 4th of July. We also had our bait bags, don't let it loose in the lake, kind of educating boaters on, not dumping bait, in the water. We want it to be dumped on land, or here's an extra bag next time you fill up to go get live bait. Make sure you have some water sitting in your car so you can swap out that water so you are following state statute. And then we also passed out DNR watch cards. We bought a whole bunch of them, and so those are just little cards just to pass out to the public, educating them on AIS and having them watch it out, because they're the ones using our waters. So we did a lot of extra outreach this year. So let's talk about the surveys that we passed out. 150 surveys. The watercraft inspectors passed these surveys out at the access to boaters, And voters told us which of the following sources has helped them inform you about AIS. And so you can definitely see a trend here. Inspectors and volunteers are high on the list. Signage at the public accesses are right under it. Billboard signs, magazines, local news, and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting to see where people are learning about AIS and where they want to see those sources kind of come from. So that could help us with our advertising for inspectors next year, or just prevention efforts as well. And then here's another question on that survey. Voters feel well informed about the risks of AIS and how to prevent it. So these graphs are from a 1 through 5 rating, 5 being yes, they feel very well informed. And so you can see the darker color is that people do feel well informed. There's a very little percentage of people that don't feel informed about, the risks of AIS to our lakes and rivers, and informed about the actions that they need to take on their boat and trailer at the access. So people are really well informed at the accesses. So this kind of proves. Eurasian water milfoil treatment, so we allocated just over $25,000 for that, and we offered $2,500 per lake for treatment and surveying of Eurasian water milfoil. We had 10 lakes be able to apply for this grant. And then we also, the county provided $500 towards a survey to be conducted on Lake Osawatomie. They haven't had Eurasian water milfoil identified in their lake for a few years now. So that's pretty a successful story. Also, the successful story is Emily Lake Association once again reported that they did not have any Eurasian water milfoil, and they did not request any reimbursement this year. So that would be their second year that they have found nothing either. So we've had 2 success stories. Highlighted in blue are the lakes that the county has received Eurasian water milfoil grant requests from currently. So if you're highlighted in black, that means I haven't received your request yet. So we'll be wanting those requests definitely by the end of November at the latest. Newly AIS infested lakes in Crow Wing County. Currently, we have 2 zebra mussel infested lakes. We had Bass Lake that is connected to Kimball, and then Clear, which is kind of by that same location. Currently, we did have some inside news on Rabbit Lake being infested, but official press release has not come out yet, but the DNR has confirmed.
I think it did go out.
Oh, it did come out. Perfect.
I thought it was Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, perfect. And then you can see the trend of the infested waters list in 2020 and 2021. And so we definitely see more, zebra mussels being infested versus other in species in our county. So start somewhere though. So we do some early AIS prevention, and we have Lake Association sample and tested lakes for zebra mussel villagers and spiny water flea. We had 23 lakes tested for zebra mussel villagers and 27 tested for spiny water flea. Unfortunately, we did R&B found zebra mussel villagers in one of the uninfested samples, Bass Lake, that I mentioned on the last slide. So the DNR searched the lake after the report, and they did find adult zebra mussels, but they were kind of spread out throughout the lake. But they were, that Bass Lake, it has a channel with Kimball too, so there is that conductivity there. But these are the little, so when those samples get reported to R&B, they look for these zebra mussel villagers under a microscope, and then this is the sampling net that they use. So we did get a positive result back this year, which is a good and bad. At least we know about it now.
I'm just gonna chime in something on the chat here. I'm Charlie from Clearwater Lakes, and say rusty crawfish, it's another invasive species. They're voracious vegetation eaters, and they have the increased native vegetation. The local DNR is not aware of any rusty crawfish in any other local lake species where anyone else has any. They've done region 1 milfoil removal and annual runoff in the past 2 years. So just kind of wondering if anyone else has rusty crawfish, or if anyone else uses divers to pull Eurasian water milfoil.
I know that there's other infested lakes that have rusty crayfish other than Crow Wing County. I don't know the statistics on it, but there has been sightings and reportings. I think Leech Lake has them and kind of up in Cass County. For the Eurasian water milfoil question, yes, we have had other used divers. Upper South Long has used divers. If they don't meet that 1 acre, that 1 acre recommendation or requirement from the DNR, then they have to use a different method of getting that Eurasian water milfoil out of the lake. And so some of them will choose divers or chemical treatment.
Down from the DNR says there's about 117 water bodies in Minnesota that are infested with rusty crayfish.
I knew somebody from the DNR would know. Excuse me. So diving into our lead inspector sampling, she did sample 44 landings, and she didn't find any prohibited AIS, but she did find some regulated ones. We had Chinese mystery banded snails that have been around for a very long time. They came from the aquarium trade. And so we did find those in Flagstone, White Sand, Upper Hay, and Round. And so those were reported on the EDD maps. And then we did find Curly Leaf Pond within Gladstone and Pelican Lake resulted in those surveys. And so those are regulated. Curly Leaf Pond weed has been around for 100 years almost. And so these are not prohibited AIS species, but at least we have that great data point that we found this information while doing our searches. And then, kind of cutting a little short here, but we have Carrie Hall and Jessamine Foley here with the Minnesota DNR to kind of talk about their watercraft inspection season and what they've been noticing too, definitely kind of highlighting Crow Wing County. So we can kind of turn it over to them and start that up. Any other questions for me about Crow Wing County data?
So we would look at the notes that we have. It's okay. I've got. There's not a lot of plants in the website. Just did put the notes in. I'm like, oh, shit. All right. So I'm Carrie Hall, Watercraft Inspection Supervisor for Region 2 with the Minnesota DNR. That means that I supervise all of the watercraft inspectors from Crow Wing County all the way up north to the Canadian border and then all the way east to Lake Superior, so it's a huge region. So I tried to call down all of the numbers and inspections and all that stuff for just Crow Wing County. So our watercraft inspection program, this is kind of a quick overview of how it's run down. So Adam Dahl is the program coordinator down in St. Paul, and we have 4 region supervisors. So Region 1 is Belinsky out of Fergus, and then you've got myself and Jessamine in Region 2, and then Region 3 is Christine, and 4 is Travis. So, and the next one is Watercraft Inspection Program Assistant. So Jessamine helps me out a lot with organizing the schedules and keeping the watercraft inspectors on task and all that stuff.
That was Jerry when I went.
Oh, when I clicked on it, probably. And then at the bottom, I added the authorized watercraft inspectors. There we go. The authorized watercraft inspectors for each region. So we have and they're all over the state are considered level 1s and level 2s. So our level 2s run the decontamination units. They're also permanent employees, so they receive sick leave, vacation, benefits and stuff like that. So those are our level 2s, and we're supposed to have 12. So region-wide, we have 12. In Crow Wing County, we have 6. I think twice. And then to match that, we hire on 12 level 1s. Level 1s strictly do just inspections. They don't touch the decon unit. They don't, power wash boats. They're also interns. So that means that they're working from, say, mid-May through the end of August. So we get a lot less time out of our level 1s. Our level 2s start in April and go all the way through the end of October. So we get a lot of hours out of that. So that was just I wanted to put that down there so that you kind of got a nuance of what we're dealing with, a little bit different than Crow Wing County. So, and I put down there are approximately 1,000 combined authorized level 1 and level 2s working through all local governments and DNR. So, right. So the next slide. Okay. So our staffing numbers for most of this past summer, we had 4 level 2s, which is down from the 6, and we only had 2 level 1s, which is down from the 6 as well. So we also had a level 1 that was working out of Father Hennepin and a level 2 out of Father Hennepin. I put that in there because they work all of the Mille Lacs County accesses, and I know one of them is in Garrison. So, and then the other ones are just the breakdown. So essentially, we were half staff all summer throughout the region, which kind of correlates with everyone else trying to hire and get people. We did manage to get 3 level 2 inspectors. So we filled out our level 2 inspector crew in Brainerd. So hopefully next season we'll have all of our hours. Make sure all my notes I'm following here. So these numbers, I have to preface, they look really wonky. The planned days that we have based on a 12-person crew out of Brainerd is really high. So it's 445 level 1 hours and 650 through 58 hours. And of course, the actual days that we were able to work were very minimal, 30% of what we should have gotten. Now, keep in mind those planned days, I go through and I look at every single possible day that they're working. We haven't figured out a way to add in those, the maintenance days that we have, the staff meetings that we have, the special events. We've got roadside checks, we've got AIS meetings, we've got trainings. All those need to be added into that planned days, and there's no real way to come up with, is it 8% that we're going to be at the accesses? So I just threw it all in there and thought, well, I'll explain it this way. It also doesn't reflect our paid sick or vacation, any other absences. So that's kind of why that number looks a little skewed, a lot skewed, I should say. So. And then, even though our numbers were low, we did manage to get an increase in our inspections, which is odd because everyone else that I've talked to, and even the region-wide, statewide numbers are all down for inspections. So the only thing I can think of Our total inspections were 3,867 total inspections, include courtesy inspections. So those courtesy inspections are the ones that someone comes and says, I want you to check my boat for whatever before I go in. Entering, exiting, obviously, and then the lifts are, when like service providers or someone pulls out a lift. That's how many we did in the county. We did 116 total decons, which is also up from last year. So 17 were people seeking out the decon. They came to us willingly. 8 were entering, and then 91 were ex. So I did a little comparison between the years past and this year. So 2019, we were at 4,500, and then we had that good year of 2020. And note that our inspections didn't start until about mid to late June. We didn't get people hired on. Our level 1 inspectors were only on for a month, maybe a month or 2. Our level 2 inspectors did work through the end of October, but it's still a decent number. Then 2021 was a little bit higher, and then this year, the only thing I can think of is we did change our program. So we changed our program a little bit from specifically, we used to work all 7 days of the week. And this past year, we decided to switch it up, take out a day where we had the decon out, and focus on Wednesday through Sunday hours, and split some of our decon units up. So we didn't have decons out on Tuesday, we didn't have decons out on Wednesday, but we had our staff in the field out on Wednesday, half of our staff on Wednesday. So we kind of focused on getting more inspections at the access. And we also told our level 2s that on the weekends, we need to push our decons a little bit more. And I think that kind of helped with some of our numbers being higher. We also, with that changing of the hours, we went to different accesses. So we added a lake, was it Sylvan Reservoir, which is on the border of Crow Wing County and Cass County. We added that one. That was a new one. We added a few others that we weren't able to go to before because we were focused on, decon accesses, high-use decon accesses.
Kimball, Ossawinnamakee.
Yeah, Kimball, Ossie, all those lakes were added to our list. Jones Bay, we went to a lot more. Pelican Lake. So we were able to hit those accesses that we didn't normally hit. South Long, we didn't typically go to. Serpent, east and west. So a lot of those can have, a lot of difference on how we were able to capture those inspections. I still need to dig into those numbers a little bit more and make sure I'm not missing something, because it still perplexes me that the rest of the region is down in hours. So my regional numbers are down by about 3,000 region-wide. But why did it go up in Crow Wing County? It was very strange, and believe me, I've looked at them, I've tried it different times. I can send you the spreadsheet if you'd like. You can look it up.
I have an idea also. We focused on Bay Lake and Cross Southwest on the
Yes.
weekends this year,
Yes.
where we were in the past
True.
allowing Crow Wing County to be there. And I think we probably saw an increase in inspections based on that.
Yes. I did notice in the data, Cross Lake Southwest was up around 600-700 inspections, and the same with Bay Lake. And those were specific to weekend hours. So that could explain a lot too. So I just need more time with data overall.
Quick question, do you coordinate with Nicole or Crow Wing County to say, hey, we're going to be here on these days, so you don't need to staff that day?
We certainly do, and we worked, I think this year it worked really well to do that every third. I think we had 3 accesses that we rotated, Bay Lake, Cross Lake, and was the other one?
It was just those 2.
I thought there was another one. Anyway, we rotated and ended up by going to those accesses, and we're able to get a decon at those accesses versus other years we weren't able to do that. But yeah, we do. We partner with the LGUs and share schedules and stuff. So that's a good point to add, is that even though, you may not get, I mean, lake associations may not get inspection coverage from Crow Wing County. We are working with Crow Wing County to get those accesses covered. So you may end up with hours from DNR versus the county.
I see it at the launches, but Crowing will be there one day and DNR will be there another.
Right.
We also, at times, we do partner together. So our employees will work alongside with Crow Wing County's employees
Yeah.
to operate our decon unit in the field as well.
Okay.
So we will partner with all the LGUs whenever we can. So if we don't have, like, for instance, we have one decon unit that only has one level 1 that's paired up with it. We will talk with Crow Wing County if we don't have a level 1 to pair up. And that's a safety thing for us to have 2 people running
Sure.
the decon units. So decons, so also those numbers did increase steadily in the past few years. Part of it was we made a concerted effort or a concentrated effort to increase those decons. I don't know if this is part of it, but we did decide to hand out stickers this year saying that I will clean, drain my boat, trailer, and gear before leaving any water body or water houses. And at the bottom, it has a QR code that you can, point your phone at and click to get the Minnesota DNR inspection site or decon site. So, I mean, that may be part of it, but we also have been telling our inspectors to be a little bit more coercive at the accesses. Hey, this is a really great thing to do to protect your waters. You're leaving Gull Lake, why not just get a decon before you go to the next lake and spend the sun? And I think a lot of our efforts have paid off, obviously. They have gone up. So I just wanted to touch on AIS roadside check stations. So these were set up through our region. We had 6 of them region-wide, and we participated in 5 of them in Region 2. 3 of them, I mentioned this because 3 of them were near Crow Wing County. We've had them in Crow Wing County before, but essentially it's, we partner with the conservation officers to set up a sign that says all boats must exit here at a certain point. They exit to that station. Our inspectors go through, check over the boat, make sure there's no AIS violations. If there happens to be something, then the conservation officers take over and either, a lot of them are technically not citations. I mean, they're considered a violation. Sometimes they'll get a warning. It depends on what it is, and it's really up to the conservation officer. But we've helped with Big Sandy up in Aiken County, so going north on 65, there's a roadside wayside station or rest area. There you go. We utilize that rest area, and then we actually go to Malmo and Cedar Creek accesses on the other side of Mille Lacs Lake. If you think that there is a spot that would be a good place to pull over, I know we used to do roadside checks on Upguard WMA or Upguard. So we'd have them pull over there. That was a decent roadside check station. But if you think you have a spot that might be a good area to do one of these, they have to be on the right side of the road, so you're not making boats turn to the left, crossing traffic. And we think about they have to be en route to a lake. So places that probably wouldn't work would be 371 North access on North Long. So if you're going up 371, it's a fairly busy freeway, and it's going to the lakes, but we don't want to be trying to slow down traffic. So just kind of something to keep in mind, and I thought I'd mention that if you ever saw those. So I don't have too much else, just because it was so focused on Crow Wing County, and we're also still working. So our inspectors are still in the field this weekend. I haven't really dug into a lot of the data just because I don't have it all. So I usually want to make sure I have it all before I confuse myself even more, which I've already started to do. So. Any questions, concerns? All right, with that, I'm done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gary. That's some great data points to compare both of our inspection seasons together.
I'll leave these here if you want to. Okay, no, just stickers.
All right. Well, that kind of concludes our presentation portion of this. We have Gary that's going to come up and say a few words.
Yeah. You want to go to that the risk map? What I've learned since being director, this program is huge about being a good partner, building relationships with lake associations, with the DNR, other local units of governments, lake improvement districts. There's always usually a handful of new folks on these boards and lake associations, and I wanted to talk as we were going to ask for some feedback, and we obviously always get it and try to use it. Is one of the big contentious, I want to say issue that we can't make everybody happy is where does the money go? So again, bringing that focus back to, we get about $460,000 a year from the DNR to run this program. We did 3 years ago, we did a little kind of a case study with, I think it was 160 public accesses in Crow Wing County. And if we wanted to staff them 24/7 to totally lock down our accesses, that would have took $7 million 3 years ago. So we get not even $500,000 to run the program. A lot of people would like to see us at a $7 million effort. So you can see there's a big gap there on what might be ideal to what we have to work with. With that, just to bring it into better clarification, and Nicole, you did great, but it's such a interesting thing. We really do rely on Macer to help us with their spread modeling on where is the highest risk and where should we allocate the most money to control the spread. And that's where our high risk in the last 3-4 years have gotten the most attention. That doesn't mean that everybody's lake isn't important. We know they all are. It's just, we have less than $500,000 to figure out where it needs to go, and there just isn't enough money to go around. I wanted to kind of spit that out when we get going into the comments. Another big thing I just wanted to say is we used to contract out a third-party vendor to do our hiring for us. And while we believe we save a lot of money doing it, one of the untold stories on that inspector training, there's a way to identify the weed down here. Is that Eurasian water milfoil? Is it curly pond weed? Oh, I got a snail over here or something. That's technical and that needs to be there. But as Crow Wing County, and they come through our hiring process, instead of having a third-party vendor do it, even though we work very hard with a vendor, we're in the people business. Government's in the people business. We want these voters to have a good experience. We don't want to be out there being big, bad brother. We want to be happy, encouraging big brother in a way, if you will. And so in that training, we talk about how you're going to treat people, what kind of representation we want if you're an employee of Crow Wing County. And that has went, we used to get, I don't know how many complaints, we should have the statistics from the complaints we used to get from voters with their experience with our inspectors to what we get today. So while there's a debate on, should we just do that model, because it does cost the county more to run it through our hiring process. But I think the product is night and day to what we used to get when another company is paid just to get a live body at a landing. That's what they get paid. We're looking for a better experience. I just wanted to touch on that with the inspectors. And then we probably have a little bit of different opinion. The DNR is our overseers. I always like to say, we don't need to listen to them, but we do need to. But like, we're gonna talk about surplus, we're gonna talk about what are some things we can do to better this program next year. I'm a big believer in mobile decons. We can put a mobile decon at a landing and have somebody still check in boats and maybe get 2 decons a day, if that, and pay them to be very productive. Instead of the Cross Lake model where they sit there day after day after day and they might not even get a boat. You know, so you can kind of almost get a twofer out of the mobile decon than these more stationary ones that are off the water. Anyways, nobody's been able to change my opinion on that. At this point, I want to share that because that's one of the things that I would talk to the commissioners about to consider if that's something, we're always looking to be very effective, very efficient with the money, so when you can get some of that return, so maybe like a second mobile decon, but just wanted to share those thoughts when we open it up for feedback.
Improve your decon, add that reclaim.
Yeah, we
Add
can
that
have
reclaim
more.
to the one that you have, and you can go to more accesses. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you just give us the map, we'd be fine. Thanks, everybody. I know that's what it's mine. Oh, yeah.
Does the county contribute funds to the program, or is it all supported all by the state money?
Take like Nicole's salary, about 15% of what we pay Nicole is out of the county coffers, out of basically tax levy dollars. That's the biggest expense. We figure it's around 15,000 a year to use HR staff and our county staff to hire and run through an orientation process with us. We think that's a savings compared to almost $6 an hour per employee through a hiring or a temp agency, you kind of say. So I think those are big, but there is no like, oh, we're going to levy $100,000 for AIS. We currently don't do that. Yep. Sorry.
All right, so jumping into the feedback, we're hoping to get a lot of great participation in this feedback. It's so important for us to hear from you guys on, the successes and the missed opportunities and how we should plan for future years. So we're going to jump into inspections. We'd love to hear from lake associations online or in person about, those successes and missed opportunities in Crum County. Susan?
Yes, this is an opportunity to say we no longer do decons at Pelican Square because we didn't get the funding from the state because we don't have enough. Okay, so we could not definitely staff the 9 to 6. So my big question too is your 9 to 6 working across the board? Because I know I could help out, but I'm not working 9 to 6. We need to either sell this equipment or donate. I went to Minnesota Coalition Lake Associations at one point, but then I haven't followed up. But I also did a query out there, and there's a company in multiple states that takes equipment or uses equipment like that for major catastrophes, such as oil spills. So I've been communicating with a gentleman on that. But my question is I'd like to also say that there's equipment available to be utilized. I know that also on the Minnesota Coalition, there was some lake up north has on the lake, they have a decon unit. So that might be another opportunity that we put this equipment on some lake and have some. So it's just another thought, but we have equipment that we need to do something with. Or not dispose of it, and that's kind of sad. So that's my comment on inspections, because that's just another down that we could have been getting more, and we have possibility there. And when it comes to, we wanted increased hours, and of course, we only got, I think we got 18 hours. So now we tried, and we've got money to use, and that's the thing. What do we how can we best go about utilizing it? So thank you. No, I'm Kelly from Lansing.
Thank you, Susan.
Just a couple of things from people online here. Audit.Roy, the issues of all unit of their high traffic access and they leave it out for Memorial until Labor Day. And then you have a reclaim that. There's a question, how do you determine which fishing permits to cover with inspectors?
So we determined that by looking at the approved DNR landings that we can have our mobile decon at currently without the reclaim mat. And then we look at the schedule that's provided with those approved tournaments that need that certain entry form. And so we look at that schedule based on where we can provide our mobile decon to have that decontamination available for these fishing tournaments.
Another question, in addition to increased coverage hours, can associations or lands pay extra to increase the hourly rate to attract more inspectors to cover our increased requests?
What, you would take that?
This, I'm not 100% sure, it's interesting, I will definitely look into that. I don't know, does the DNR, do you guys know any stipulations on, like, expanded coverage requests, we bill them if they work those hours? Can those lake associations or lands pay extra to increase the hourly rate? Especially if we give us the extra funding. I don't know if we can do that.
Say that again, word that again.
Can lake associations or lands pay extra to increase the hourly rate to attract more inspectors and cover our increased requests?
To us, no. DNR, no. But to you, I mean, that's on your end, what you're gonna, how you're gonna bill that.
I think we'd have to check on that. I would just clarify, for who put that on there, where it could be a no is if a lid says, hey, I want to increase the hourly inspection rate for our landing, not the programs, you know, and so if the devil's in the details here, we might be able to do something to increase the $15, $16 and use that money to help there, but it wouldn't be specific to that Lids Lake or the Lake Association's Lake or multiple landings. I don't think we would get into that.
I think that'd be kind of difficult, you know, saying that this inspector gets paid this much an hour to be on Lower South Lawn compared to another lake that doesn't have any expanded coverage.
Yeah, you'd have to have one specific inspector and they, you know, they would have to be hired specifically for that lake. Yeah, that's not, we don't do it in our program.
I want to be clear, we would accept a donation in any form to help with our AIS work. And so any donation that a lake association wants to make, the logistic issues is probably the question. We can't specify an hourly rate per landing. And so we probably need to deal with the hourly rate question as a whole and pay all of our inspectors a higher hourly rate. If a lake association would like to contribute to that effort, we will accept their donation.
Well, will you accept it and implement?
Yes.
So you would accept the donation, and then you would increase the hourly rate from 16 to 17.
You could
You
make
could give us
your
the number?
donation contingent on our action to do that. And then if we don't do that,
Okay.
you don't have to make the donation.
As opposed to,
But we would
As
do it
opposed
for
to-
all.
understood, but as opposed to, so I'm hearing that you're not sure you would do it, but we could make a donation, then you'd give it back, as opposed to, we will do it, here's the money.
You can make the contingency on whatever you want with your money. Your money,
Well, it's
Your
not
rules.
My money, and the steward of the money.
but you get it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying. Your money, your rules.
Yeah.
And so you can make a contingent donation if you wish. And we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
Yes, so?
Phil Rollins from Bay Lake here. So this year, I think, was the first, thank you. I think this was the first year that you changed the schedule, the timeframe of the inspection from 9 to 6. In past years, we've been able to get inspectors as early as 6 a.m., take them as late as 8 p.m. And You have the data of DNRs that more than I do about how many voters are going through which hours, but we've been trying to cover earlier, and we're not doing that now. Is that decision in part just to have the same hours across the whole program, so to speak, or is it that those are the hours that you determine are the best place to put the money, or how do we come to that? And I would always be advocating for, at least for us to have inspectors earlier than 9, particularly the fishermen who are there earlier.
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at the question. So basically, we shifted to have that consistent shift because we were seeing the data during that time period. We were seeing more traffic from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We had car counters buried at the accesses in 2018 or 17, if my memory serves me right. And so we are seeing the traffic during that time. Another reason for it was that, last year we were also so short-staffed. So we wanted to kind of attract more inspectors by providing them with a consistent shift than saying, hey, you're going to work 6 hours this day or 10 hours this day, and vice versa.
Everybody talking to that?
Just so people online can hear.
I'm happy to identify, I'm Tim Cohen, the chairman of the AIS committee for the Gulf Chain of Lakes. Has anyone maybe this is an offline, but just a general question, I thought that I was told that Whitefish started and explored a little bit, trying to make my question succinct. We want more people for more inspections. Gulf Chain of Lakes has 1,050 members. Has anyone explored or has it been attempted to try to work out some sort of volunteer inspectors to coordinate with the DNR and yourself? So again, this is not specific to me, but just from an example standpoint, I work full time, but I'd like to donate 5 Saturdays a summer and be an inspector. Right? I don't want to be an employee of DNR. I don't want to be an employee of Pro-Wing, but I want to be a credible inspector and work with you. Has any Lake Association attempted that? Is that a viable option? Is it something that I should just forget about because Whitefish tried it and it was a disaster? So sorry for the long-winded question, but
Nope.
is a 1-day-a-week volunteer system viable?
Yeah, so the DNR does have a program that you can be a volunteer. And so basically you would go through their background. You have to go through a certain kind of process with the DNR to be declared as a volunteer. You don't have the same abilities as an inspector would, but you can be a volunteer, and I'll kind of have Carrie touch base about that program a little more.
We don't need to consume a lot of time with it in this forum, but I'm happy to call you if you're the person I need to talk to.
Certainly. We do have volunteer programs. So the volunteer program, like Nicole said, you go through a background check every year. The difference between AIS volunteers and AIS inspectors is that when you see an inspector at the access and they say, I am a watercraft inspector, authorized watercraft inspector, they can require you to go through an inspection. The volunteers do not have that ability to require anyone to go through an inspection. Now, you can be there as a concerned citizen, you can be there as a helper. So if you see plants or anything on that boat, you can say, sir, I noticed that you have plants hanging on the road, I'm a volunteer, I can help you with that. But if they say no, at that moment, you have to back away. There's no requirement that they have to even talk to you. There's no requirement that they can accept your help as a volunteer. So, I mean, the things that volunteers do help with is that they're an extra set of eyes at the access. They're an extra set of, an extra person to get that education out there. So it's educational for those volunteers. And that does help a lot. I mean, we do see that the compliance comes up even with volunteers at the access. So I think you're referring to, when you talk about Whitefish Chain or Crosslink.
I just heard from another board member up there that they tried it and it didn't work very well.
They did have a very good volunteer program for quite a while.
We did,
actually.
okay.
And the reason, the thing that didn't work for them was they tried to hire someone to be a volunteer that stayed in the campground. So they were on the Army Corps of Engineers access. And people were just confusing them with the actual authorized inspector. So that's kind of where I think that came in, where they were getting paid, so there's kind of a muddy water. They weren't that in DNR access, there's just a lot of background to that.
Just one follow-up question, and if it's okay, I'll call you offline, because I don't.
Certainly.
So
Yeah.
just as I hear you explain that a little bit, it makes great sense. So traditionally, or right now, we have two, I'm using the word accredited, I use a different word, accredited AIS inspectors.
Authorized, yeah.
Authorized, sorry. So we have two authorized inspectors. Could a volunteer program help relieve that, i.e. you've got one authorized inspector and one volunteer, so they could work, so now as a DNR or Crow Wing, they only need one authorized inspector. We coordinate about, I mean, and I realize that the scope of this is very large, but just looking for solutions rather than what are the obstacles. Is that something that we could talk about, or?
We'd have to talk about it.
Okay,
I don't
yeah,
know how
I will call you.
How that would work. And what we try not
Understood.
to do is confuse the voters. So as a volunteer versus an authorized inspector, I don't want someone to come up and say, oh, are you an inspector? Oh, yeah, yeah. And it turns out that person's not.
No, I'm just a volunteer, but he or she is the inspector, so.
It could be, I've never actually gone down that road.
Yeah,
Typically
just-
volunteers, I know Phil is a good example. Volunteers have the access from 6 to 9 when we're not there doing volunteer work and then right?
In the past, not this year.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that works for sure.
Is it okay if I call you for follow-up? Is that
Certainly.
okay? Thank you.
Anyone can call.
Okay, thank you.
And we're also going to hopefully be bringing back our in-person training for that soon
Okay.
too. Right now it's online.
And this is kind of a follow-up on that volunteer. Why wouldn't volunteers be considered people working for free in the same capacity? Can you train the volunteers to be authorized inspectors but without pay?
I was answering. I've got too many things going on. What was the question again? Sorry. Why can't they what?
Why wouldn't volunteers be considered people working for free in the same capacity? Can you train the volunteers to be authorized inspectors but without pay?
Yes. It's an ambassador program, so I asked Adam to explain it better in the comments. Is he doing it?
Authorized inspectors are defined in statute and require a delegation
they're-
agreement.
Authorized inspectors are designated that in the statute, so they're requiring delegation agreement with the LGU or whoever's.
So they could essentially maybe become an LGU, have an agreement with you guys and just not pay the people, but they could be fully authorized?
I guess. I don't think about that.
I don't think the pay status has anything to do with whether they can be trained and certified.
Right.
It's just, we're paying $15 an hour now and can't find anyone. And so the conversations about how many volunteers are lined up to do the same thing for free,
But my suggestion would be, we have 1,015 members on the Gulf
that's a
chain.
missed
I would
opportunity.
go to those members and ask for volunteering. I'm not looking for a $15 an hour employee. I'm asking because they have a very vested interest in that, and I would think I would get some traction with that.
I think that's the missed opportunity, is talking at your lake association meetings about the need for inspectors. Whether they want to do it as volunteers or whether they want to do it as paid, we'll figure that out. Frankly, that could be a fundraiser for the lake association for all I care, because we're going to have to pay someone, but there's income tax. So if you run them through our system, they got to be an employee. If you guys are going to take care of it yourself, okay,
So this sounds like DNR could train volunteers to be authorized inspectors. Is that right?
they can't work for the, if
Right now-
they work for the DNR, they're going to insist on paying you.
Say again,
If
what
you
now?
work for Crow Wing, we're going to insist on paying you.
So the volunteers you've described, the ones that we have, can't touch a boat, can't insist on anything. Could volunteers be trained to be authorized inspectors to make those demands and still be volunteers and not be paid?
So you would have to be under a payroll at some point. It's a legal or a
We can't touch it because, and here's why. We have some folks that we have, and they are on our payroll, and we are paying them an hourly rate. We
So
have other people doing the exact same thing, not on our payroll. And the risk for us is that later on down the line, if somebody gets mad at us, they're gonna make a claim. And we're gonna be obligated to pay, because we have two classes of people doing the exact same
And
thing.
you wouldn't be supervising them either, and that'd be.
Exactly. And so that's the issue for payroll is we can't have two people doing the exact same work, one of which is a volunteer and one of which we're paying. The risk to the organization is all of the volunteers could later ask to be paid, and I think we would be obligated to do so.
that, and there is another aspect of insurance. So the volunteer is out there doing something as a volunteer. Technically, you shouldn't be doing, like he said, the same job as someone that's being paid. And the volunteers or the inspectors have to be under an insurance policy. So something happens that is, is covered under our insurance or.
We're trying to improve it in one of our two programs.
I got it.
It's beyond me.
Yeah.
My
I would
favorite is
love to, I'm working full time.
figure out the
I'd love to
reason.
help.
I think there's others.
But if you guys
There's
have
lots of
questions about it further, I'm willing to have a discussion. We can loop in. I know Adam's listening, so he's heard
Okay.
this
Yeah.
conversation. I
Sounds
think
great.
he can help too. So,
Nicole, back to the scheduling and the 9 to 6. So I just want to be on record that they would like to have some flexibility in that, to be able to have you schedule hours for us for them. I just want to go on record as having you all know that.
I just want to comment, before we had the county, we were on the county payroll, we paid our own through a vendor. We did use the 7 or 9 in the morning, or 7 to 8 in the, 6 and 7 in the morning, and that's where we thought we were missing people now, but you have the data, but there again, Pelican's one of the bigger, and it's got people that are out there fishing in the morning, so. Just a comment.
I do have to go to work, but I'd like to go on record of thanking all of you. We're working together on the same team. We really appreciate all that you're doing. It's amazing. You just like the article that you just put out about the Star Stonework on Lake Superior. I mean, you think of Lake Superior and one person with it on the intake on their motor and the effect that could have. So
yeah,
hats off to all of you. Thank you.
thank you.
Just some more stuff on the lower stuff along the same lines, there are 8 hours beyond the 9 to 6. Like Nicole said, we have staffed it in the past. A lot of the reason this year was just staffing. We didn't have the extra staff to do those longer shifts because it gets to be a 12-hour day. And we would split that in half and do 2 6-hour shifts, and we just did not have enough staff. So that was the main reason this year. But lower South Volume agrees with the extra staffing, and they're also wondering how will they get the mobile team out scheduled at lower South Volume.
And another thing to kind of touch base about our consistent shift too, we're kind of dealing with gas prices this year too. So inspectors, they don't want to travel to a certain access just to work for 4 to 6 hours. They want to work a full 9-hour day. They want to make the best of the bang for their buck. So that's another reason why kind of we're going down that path too, but we definitely will consider that for our future year. Should we? Yeah, Tony?
Nicole, in regards to inspectors and paying them, has there been any talk of adding a mileage reimbursement over a certain set of miles in order to help out with the cost of going between landings?
That's definitely something to consider. I know that some other counties, AIS programs do that. I'm not sure if the DNR does that, so it's definitely something to consider down the road.
I think we're gonna have to increase the pay for the inspectors. I don't think there's any question, whether it's through mileage reimbursement or hourly rate. As we increase the rate that we're gonna pay, that will buy fewer hours of inspection, but we're not getting half the hours of inspection we have the resources for today. And so I think we will be better off increasing the hourly rate and maybe actually being able to deliver a full slot of inspections. I don't think there's any question that recruitment problem for us is what holds us back. We're not alone. Everybody knows that.
It's statewide, that's for sure.
Nicole, you might have mentioned it earlier, I had to step out for a minute, but the other thing is how much is going to be carried over till next year? Do you have an approximate on that, you or Jessica?
I'm thinking, I looked the other day, it was right around, I'd say that 50,000 mark, and I know we usually try to stay around like maybe 10 or less to roll over every year, and I want to say we're closer to 50 this year.
Okay. Yeah, because it looks like you used about 12,300 hours, is what it looks like, out of 15,000. 90.
Pay for another decon, Tony.
That's just what we said.
One with a reclaim unit on it.
Yeah.
All right, so we kind of touched about some decons. Is there any success or missed opportunities that we want to discuss about decontaminations and, how we can better that for our upcoming years?
So this might be a question to DNR. I know that Ruth has a permanent decon station. How does one go about doing such a thing? I mean, if we came to you and we would buy your decon unit and want to have it placed and have it manned, is that something?
So Ruth Lake doesn't have a permanent one. They do have a mobile, but it's permanently only at that access. Just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Yeah. So Ruth Lake has to go through every year talking to Parks and Trails to make sure that they can have it parked there. And they agreed upon a spot to park it, agreed on the times that they'll have it there and when they'll take it, they basically park it there in April and take it down in September or something like that. I don't know what equipment is at. It's not a mobile. I mean, it's in the.
I think it's up there somewhere because
it's in one of the bays for the car wash, and so it's not really.
I have to go back and look at my notes because
Or if we were to buy one, I mean, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I just don't think I didn't think it was
it's not the
so
same.
mobile, but
Who
yes,
runs it?
if you did that, you would talk with Parks and Trails in the Brainerd office. Or me, basically, I'll just get you in the right direction and we would set up an agreement on which access and the dates. All that stuff.
And just to be clear, Ruth is their own LGU. They have a Lake Improvement District. So they run their own inspection and decontamination program out of their own umbrella.
So how would we staff it? Who staffs it? How does that training happen and?
That would be either Crow Wing County or it would be an LGU on their own. So,
They
but
do
that's-
everything themselves. We don't do anything with.
But that's what I'm saying, is that it would be an LGU on, like she said, Ruth Lake is their own LGU, they have their own staff, they have their own.
So, yeah, we give them how many hours on that risk map,
There you go.
and we cut them a check. And then whatever that doesn't cover, their LID, I think it helps reimburse however many hours they want to do.
Yeah. And then at that point, you would work with us.
And, yeah, the only thing we require is that the hours that's on the map that's allocated to that money, to get the money, they have to agree to, meet those hours. Yeah, it's a little goofy, but.
All right, anything else about decontaminations? We'll move on to the next one.
Stuff just said that they would like to be considered for mobile decon in future years, and like we both said, we have the reclaim mat. I think there's like a pump or something we have to buy to go with it.
To add to that, the reason why we don't have one there is because we were collecting data on how busy South Lawn was, and that may, after this year's data, it may bump that up to getting decon hours.
Yeah.
So
With
on on our list of, criteria, part of it is inspections per hour. And because South Lawn is a newly invested zebra mussel water, we wanted to get that data before we just said, here, have a decon unit. And kind of stick with that protocol so that we have, something to kind of show for why we picked it. So that they may end up with hours. I was looking at the numbers.
Yeah, they have pretty high inspections this year.
Right, yeah, I know,
Years.
yeah. So,
So they definitely might be considered for DNR or county.
mhm.
It also depends on if there's space to park.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because it's very small.
It's
Education and awareness, successes and missed opportunities. We have a lot of handouts. We got feedback from inspectors saying, they would like more simpler, better handouts to give the voters, but we did pass out a lot. I think we were very successful at that this year. Any missed opportunities or anything anybody wants to highlight about our education efforts?
Keep rolling if
Keep
nobody's
rolling. In milfoil, we, allocated 2,500 to each lake that was invested with irrigation water milfoil with public access. So for those lakes that kind of qualify for this program, we'd really like to hear some feedback of, is it working? What's not working? What is working?
Thank you for the money. We'll probably spend $75,000 this year treating milfoil, so it's not a difference maker, but every little bit helps. Thank you.
Right. Every little bit helps, but yeah, there's a good chunk of expenses going towards that treatment for a lot of lakes. Great. And then just a general, any other things, we've talked about, obviously, inspectors pay and, we had missed opportunities with our allocated hours, which very hopeful for next year, but any last minute feedback is definitely appreciated.
So I've been at this probably 10 years on Bay. So I've seen it go from what was all volunteers, when we had 100 volunteers that were manning the access, to what you have now, and that transition has been fabulous. And you've done a great job from my perspective. And I think the program runs better than it ever has. It's just too bad we can't get more inspectors. That's really, really too bad. But the transition from YouTube, I've seen it too, over these years has really been, there's been a lot of pain in there, things that didn't work so well, but it's really, you guys, this is working, I think, very smoothly. And while maybe we don't get the hours we'd like to have at the time we have, it all is rolling, and I just congratulate you on getting it to a place where it's efficient, it works, it's smooth, and there aren't hiccups and things like that. I think it's really come a long way. So congratulate you on that. And thank you for really, I think, making the difference from the other people that have had this job. I think you've done far better than any of them. Appreciate it.
I will definitely miss being a part of this program. And it's, with working with the DNR for the past couple seasons, I've been here 4 seasons. So, we definitely have learned to adjust and, meet everybody's needs and make sure that there are, inspectors out there and that they're well educated, right? And, doing the proper, protocols of looking at the watercraft and just being, a good person and doing the right thing. So thank you so much, Bill, for that comment. It means a lot to me.
I also want to comment, thank you for your articles, because they are part of what goes to, in our case, over 1,200 people 3 times a year. So it takes a lot for me to put this together and try to have the knowledge that you have and put it, so I can't. So thank you, and I hope your replacement can do the same thing. It's vital.
Not too late to change your mind.
And I will be a teacher.
Are you going to tell us what you're going to be going to?
I'm relocating to East Shore Lakes. So that's where I will be going. I don't have a job set up currently, but I am planning to get married and start a life with my significant other. And so we are moving to Detroit Lakes together. So that is my destination.
We got plenty of AIS over there too.
They do.
Start off as an inspector.
Yeah, I guess I should qualify pretty well for that. Well, great. I guess for our final comments here, just to kind of recap of next steps, in September 2022, we were allocated, around the same as we were previous years. And in October, right now, today, we got your feedback, so thank you for participating, thank you for being here. It really helps, our efforts for future years. And then in early January, we'll have another kind of kick-off meeting with Lake Association's feedback. So that's kind of presenting the new plan, the 2023 plan to Lake Associations to get another feedback session in. And so that date will be determined. You guys will all be notified that. And then in January, we start our 30-day public comment period on our proposed 2023 plan. And then the county board will take final action of that plan in February. So that's kind of how we're going to be kind of rolling this in. Nothing too out of the norm from other years. And then that's all we have today. Do we have any final wrap-up questions? This is our contact information. So if you have any questions, feel free to say them now or contact us individually. Well, thank you all again. It has been a joy, and hope everything goes well. I will definitely miss protecting Crow Wing County police.
Thanks, Nicole.